Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I'm just going to greet our guests today. We are talking with Karin Clarke of Karin Clarke Gallery. I'm Carrie Welch. I'm the Development and Communications Coordinator at Lane Arts Council, and welcome to Livestream Happy Hour. So all month of July, we have been preparing for Visual Arts Week, and it is finally here, kicking off this Friday, the 6th of August, and running through August 13th. We have so many things going on downtown, and you can check out everything that's happening at the City of Eugene's website, eugene/or.gov. Just check out Visual Arts Week. There's so much that's going on. And Lane Arts Council will be kicking off Visual Arts Week with First Friday Art Walk. And we are so excited because it is the first time that we are back since 2020 with an in-person live First Friday Art Walk. And Karin was just holding up our little brochure, which you can start picking up at 5:30 p.m. on Friday, August 6th in the park blocks. We'll have a booth set up where you can pick up these guides. We're going to kick off with an opening ceremony with comments from Stacey Ray, Executive Director of Lane Arts Council, with Mayor Lucy Venice, and we'll have a spoken word poetry from Dora LaFleur on the theme of emergence as we all come out of our cocoons and emerge back into the world. And at 6 o'clock, there will be a performance by Up, 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 which is a touring crane truck circus ensemble. So don't miss that. We will see you in the park blocks this Friday at 5:30 p.m. But today we are here to talk with Karin Clarke of Karin Clarke Gallery. Welcome, Karin.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me, Carrie. I appreciate you and everyone at Lane Arts Council for including me. And when you wrote me and you said happy hour, and I was like, I'm in, whatever that is. Today.
Well, you just closed up the gallery, so you probably haven't had time to grab a cocktail or anything. So I'm just drinking iced tea.
Okay, I'm gonna have like a glass of wine when this is done. But I hope that people out there have poured something that they'll enjoy, and it might make the talk more interesting.
It just might. So let's kick it off. So tell us about your gallery, when you opened it, why you opened it, and about your history in the arts in Eugene.
Okay. Well, my history, to start with that, is I actually, both my parents were and are artists. My mom, Margaret Cohen, and my dad, the late Mark Clarke, were long time painters here in Eugene. And so I grew up, in a family that was really just all about art. My brother's a musician, and that was the main thing that we had going on. And I decided to open the gallery in 2002. So we're celebrating exactly just about, it was about this time in 2002, 19 years ago, that I decided to open the gallery, or the gallery actually opened. What led up to that was really in my 20s, exploring art in all kinds of forms, taking classes, whether I was in Portland or I lived for a short while in New Mexico. And then I eventually moved back to Eugene in my mid to late 20s to study graphic design at Lane Community College. And while I was there, started getting back into painting, took painting with Adam Grosowski and drawing with Craig Spillman, and then went over to the University of Oregon and studied with Ron Graff. And I thought, well, what am I doing? I thought, well, I knew I wanted to do some kind of career in the arts, but at that time, I didn't ever imagine a gallery. But then I actually got a job as a graphic designer. And when that business closed, I suddenly had an opening in my life. And my mom and I, painter Margaret Cohen, decided to go to Italy together. And it was a 7-week trip. And we rented a car and we traveled mostly around Tuscany, but spent time in Venice. And I was not married, didn't have kids yet, and I was kind of between things. So we did this wonderful trip, and I started painting with her. And we started, and of course she was doing these fabulous paintings and I was learning from her. And we were really impressed by the family businesses that we saw when we were there, you know, whether it was a shoe store or a restaurant, you saw all the generations. And we talked about it a lot, and it's kind of like, well, what is our family about? It's always been about art. You know, aside from my parents being painters, my dad worked many years at the University of Oregon Museum of Art, which is now called the Jordan Schnitzer Museum. And he exhibit design and all aspects of the museum work. And my mom taught art at both LCC and U of O. And so that was what was going on. And so we were just talking about our family and that really being what we were about. And anyway, and I think that the idea of a gallery was something that our family sort of talked about in sort of a romantic, like, oh, that would be, you know, cool to someday have a gallery. And I honestly never ever thought it would happen, but it was just the circumstances. So we come back, and this is the spring of 2002, and it was one of these recessions, and it was one of these times when there was just a lot of change, and there was a lot of galleries closing. We had Robert Kanega had a gallery in this spot at 760 Willamette. There was a gallery on the corner. There was a gallery. There were several galleries down here, and they were all closing. And that was the conversation that was all around us. We came back, oh, isn't this sad? All the galleries are closing. They're closing. They're closing. And it was true. My mom and I were having coffee at Perugino, had just opened, and there's these for rent signs. And it was just kind of an impulse of like, okay, here I am, and I have some time, and this space is available. Totally unlike me to make a bold decision like this. And I just rented this space, and, you know, my parents assisted me with, you know, ideas for shows. And I just figured out how to run a gallery, you know, once I was open. And of course I had to figure out all the business stuff, from receiving payments to, you know, website. And it was super scary, but also like really exciting. I felt like, oh wow, this is going to be something. I go, and it might not last. I thought maybe I'd do it for a year. You know, that was my plan. I'll do it for a year, and then there's no way it's going to support itself, and then I'll have to go back and get a waitressing job again or something. But it did. I just kept on scheduling shows, and I don't know, I've had hundreds of shows now. and I've opened a second location just this year. I opened a little gallery at right outside the Gordon Hotel in the Fifth Street Market expansion, just because I was not busy enough with one gallery. I needed more to do.
It's such a cute little gallery too. I've been in it over at Gordon at the Fifth. It's very nice, and you can get a glass of wine, see Karin's second location, and just sit out there, enjoy the Fifth Street Alley Market. But here's a picture of you.
Yeah.
So this is from when the gallery first opened?
Yeah, this is a photograph by Nicole DeVito for the Register Guard in 2002. And when we first opened, the very first show was a month long, and it was my mom and dad's landscapes. And so this is our second show, and it was called Figures. So it was figurative work by both my parents. So those were our very first shows. Yeah, that's me at like 31 or 32 or something. Don't add up how old I am now. No, but it was just super exciting. And a major thing that I forgot to mention is I felt that there needed to be, that there was a gallery kind of missing from Eugene. I felt like there could be a gallery that focused on local and regional artists at a really high level. You know, there were people, there were instructors of my parents, there were people that my parents had gone to school with. There are all these people that we knew that were just incredible artists, and you never saw their work in Eugene, or maybe they were here, or, you know, an hour or two away. And it's like, let's show these people. I mean, it was just so easy to come up with ideas of artists we wanted to show, because these were friends of theirs or people they had admired. And we got into showing some estates like, Carl Hall, who taught at Willamette University in Salem, David McCosh, who was he was my parents' painting instructor at the University of Oregon, and his archives are at the museum. And we had the privilege of doing shows. Jan Zach, the sculptor, and people who were really important figure in the arts here that you can forget about if they're not being exhibited. And then and more importantly, people who are alive now who are wanting somewhere where they can maybe look forward to having a show or putting their something that it feels like it means something, and that there's a gallery that really cares and wants to present them as best as possible. And I felt like we need more galleries, and so I felt like I could do my that I had something to possibly contribute. So anyway, enough about that. But
No, that's great. I actually didn't know that. I know that Eugene has such a rich artistic community, and it is great that you are able to be there to highlight everyone who is here and has been here. Here's another picture of.
Oops, your sound just went out. I don't know. But anyway, this is a picture that was taken by Jack Liu of Oregon Quarterly, also in 2002. And this actually was from that very first show of landscapes. And my mom is holding a painting of my dad's, and my dad is holding a painting of my mom's. And I just always thought that was a great photograph. And Oregon Quarterly had done a feature on them because they both had their undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of Oregon. So they're kind of star alumni, in my opinion.
Well, and that kind of brings me to the other picture. This is an exhibit that was at the Jordan Schnitzer, correct?
Yes. In fact, actually, I'll show you after this slide, but yes, actually this show was in the works, or the idea at least was presented. Jill Hartz was the director of the museum, and the curator, Daniel Knapp, proposed to do a show for my parents at the museum. And my dad sadly died before the show happened. It was, like a year and a half later. And I was incredibly moved when Danielle presented the concept of the show, which was, it was going to be a exhibit of both their work and a retrospective of their work. And the title, Our Lives in Paint, and then the essays, and there's actually a book that went along with the show, which I do still have some at the gallery. And, it really honored, two artists that made a life together and were dedicated to creating, work that was, incredibly powerful and personal, and that they put a lot into, and that they each had their own visions in their separate studios, but their lives were really dedicated to painting and doing art, and also being good community members and being generous and people that people knew as friends as well as just artists. This is the cover of the book that the museum put together for my parents. So that was an incredibly touching honor, and that exhibit I think was like 6 months at the museum, and we felt so bad that my dad wasn't part of it, but knowing his personality, he wasn't the type that liked to have a lot of attention. So I think, well, maybe there's part of him that was kind of like, I'll just skip out and let them do this show. But anyway, it was a gorgeous show and a real honor, for my family.
So what was it like growing up with two artist parents?
I think everybody, it was wonderful. I think everyone has, things in their childhood that forms who you are, and some things you're not able to appreciate until you're older, and there's other things you take for granted, and and then of course there's complaints you have as a kid. I have a teenage daughter, Ava, and I think she's probably thinks, oh, this art business is always getting in the way of other things, but it was a mix of things. I have to mention that my parents were, economically it was a struggle. I mean, there were times when the galleries were selling work pretty well, or my dad or mom were working, but there were a lot of years that they tried to make it just on their painting, and those were very stressful years. And being the sensitive kid I picked up on the financial anxiety, and was really aware of that. And I was also very aware of, if they got, often you wouldn't know you got a sale until there was a check in the mail, because we weren't emailing or texting. And all of a sudden something rented up at the Portland Art Museum rental sales gallery. We've got a check for $60. And it was like, this buzz in the house, and, which I have to say that I love writing checks to artists. That's like a secret pleasure. It's wonderful being able to do that. And it's because it's sort of like I really know that receiving end of that. So it was financial anxiety. I mean, we didn't, we didn't have health insurance. Sometimes the house was, there wasn't heat. You had to save up to buy oil for the heating oil. But at the same time, we lived in this cool, funky old house that was full of like amazing art. And my friends would come over, especially as I got to be high school or college, and they'd be like, oh my God. I'd be like, oh yeah, they're painters. And there'd be like, these wall size paintings of things from different periods. And to be raised by people who are doing what they love to do, and that are hard workers, like dedicated. I mean, my mom would sometimes talk about when my dad was alive, that it was like an art factory. Like she loved that energy. Like she was in her studio, he was in his studio, and they were just making stuff. And they didn't care too much about if the house was clean, or they'd clean up if someone was coming over to look at art, or someone was. But it was like, it was like workshops, and my dad was building frames, and it was just like they knew that, they had something special, and it was really important to them. And also they were home. I mean, on and off, someone was usually home. I mean, I knew to kind of leave them alone in their studios, but, they were around, and, and not just artists, but just like really good people. So I was incredibly lucky. And of course, now I absolutely could not be doing what I'm doing, which I love doing, even when I get stressed by the details of running a gallery, which there's a lot of behind the scenes things. It doesn't look like, my friends think I just sit around and talk about art and drink wine. I do that, but there's a lot of behind the scenes details. And, but honestly, I could not do this. With, I learned how to hang shows from my dad. My mom and I would lay things out, and I learned a lot about talking about art through my mom, and a lot about painting from her. And I was so lucky too to have the last, how many years of my dad's life? I haven't done the math. From 2002 to 2016. That we had a project of the gallery together. So I got to really spend, some good adult years with my dad, which not everybody gets to. And then my parents have all these, so I get to still show my dad's work and hang it up in my house.
So here's a picture of you as a family.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there's another one. Tell us about this one.
Yeah. This was a newspaper newspaper clipping from the 70s. You can tell there's a lot of plaid going on in these photos. This was an art reception for Nelson Sangren. And Nelson was a painter who lived in Corvallis and taught at Oregon State University, known for a fabulous painter and instructor, did a lot of really loose watercolors of the Oregon coast and really expressive larger oils, and he was a printmaker and really a beloved figure on the Oregon art scene. And this is my brother Tim and I being picked up by Nelson Sangren at a reception, and it's just, you know, really our family, I mean, we pretty much were at home unless we went out to an art reception. And I love the caption of it because it's sort of like, okay, it was my destiny to be in the art scene because that's all I was exposed to. But anyway, and I got to actually, before Nelson passed away, I got to do, well, I've done a number of shows for him over the years, I got to do at least 2 shows of his while he was still alive here. And he was really almost like another father to my dad. And so this has been really, this whole project of the gallery is really an extension of my family, and these relationships are deep to me. I mean, it's not, you know, most of the artists I show I know extremely well and have history with, and so it's very personal and it's very satisfying because of that, and they're incredible artists. So
maybe that's, so I want to talk about the Eugene Biennial and, you know, kind of get a quick tour of your gallery.
Yeah.
So tell us about the Eugene Biennial.
Sure, yeah. So in 2016, I made the decision to start a juried show. At the time, the Jacobs Gallery had closed, and that year there was no Mayor's Art Show. And so I thought, well, maybe I could do some kind of juried show here. And I think it was my friend Bob Kiefer who said, well, why don't you call it Eugene Biennial? Or maybe he had once said, Eugene needs a biennial. I don't know what, but I liked the sound of it. I thought it sounds impressive. That's something to grow into. I don't want it to seem like it's, you know, not something to really strive for. And I also liked that it was every other year, because I thought that gives me a break, because it's a lot of work to do a juried show, and commercial galleries tend not to do juried shows that often because it's a really different kind of thing. Well, so we've had 3 so far. We had one in 2020. And then when we were conceiving the biennial, I thought, well, what are we going to do on the off years? We should really do something that ties in with it. So what the first year, the jurors and I decided that what we would do on the alternating years, like this year, is do a show for the award winners. So this is the Eugene Biennial Award Winners 1 year later show. And I have 8 local artists that were juried in last year's show, and they were selected as award winners, and they got, fabulous prizes, cash prizes and stuff, but they also got to work on do their work for a year, and then we'd meet and figure out what they wanted to put in this show. So I'm going to try to work.
Give us a sneak peek.
Whoops, that didn't work. I'm going to try to switch my camera around, and so you don't have to see my face. Let's get a break from my face. Okay, so I'm going to just tour you through the show.
Okay.
This is a series of prints/mixed media works by Eugene printmaker Talmadge Doyle. She has a series of 6 paintings in the show from her Underwater Garden series, and I'll show you a few of these. So these have like 6 or so passes through the press. They're a combination etching, woodblock, India ink, pencil, graphite. They're incredibly layered, some kind of like mapping imagery. And we have a series of oil paintings by Heather Jacks. And she was out in the DC area in a wonderful gallery there. And we're so lucky to have her in Eugene now. And she's also a photographer, but she's uh, really doing these beautifully, sensitively painted cloudscapes, really. And they're really worth close examination. One thing that's interesting about this show is you choose the award winners and then you put them together in a show. And so the work is quite varied, and it's maybe not artists you would necessarily put together, but actually the show turned out incredibly amazing. Everyone's been raving about it. This artist, Margot Levinger, she has one incredible piece in the show. She won the People's Choice Award for her fabric art Artemis last year. And this is actually a portrait of her daughter, kind of in an art deco kind of look. It's a piece called Alchemy, and it's fabric, thread, and embroidery floss. And if you come to the show to see it, there's this little fabric swatch, and it shows you how she layers the pieces in order to get the dimension, because on the face, people think it's painted, but it's actually little layers of fabric that are transparent, creating the shadow, and it's all sewn in, and it looks almost impossible. People are like, no, it's painted, but it's really not. Okay, we're gonna take, I know this can't be too long, but I wanna show you these paintings of Heather's, again, Heather Jacks. And here's the entry to the show. This is Satoko Motoji, who's a well-known painter and instructor. She's represented by White Lotus Gallery right across the street. Our neighbors over there, we love White Lotus Gallery. And I'll just go through hers. And these are Sumi ink on paper, stretched on canvas. So there's no glass between you and these incredible paintings. Everyone's been coming in saying, oh, I love Satoko's black and whites. I've never seen black and whites. These are just so wonderful. And then here's a turkey. This is Christopher St. John, of course. His work is completely recognizable. And he has both ceramic work, like these rabbits. This one's called Young Listening in Blue. And so I know I'm getting too involved in the artwork and I need to move things along, but Christopher also does these wonderful ink drawings. Look at this guy. Anyway, you've got to explore these pieces for yourself. There's too many to get in here. Here's a bound bear. And let's see, Andrea Schwartzweit. People who know Butters Gallery in Portland, she exhibited there for many years. And these are encaustic works. And they're cool shapes. There's the one tall one up above, which is a little bit of an older piece, but I thought it was wonderful. So she was nice enough to include that. And then these are her more current mixed media and encaustic on wood. And this is Andrea Schwartzweit. And then I'm going to turn around. And here's an elk by Marjorie Taylor. Marjorie, her work is so wonderful. She's using these vintage fabrics and needle points and creating this herd of wonderful animals with these long legs, and the faces are wonderful. And I'm kind of obsessed with her work. They've been keeping me company here at the gallery. So this is Marjorie's work, and she's had a lot of articles about her and her vegan taxidermy and incredible window displays at her store, Velvet Edge. And then I'm going to scoot around and get in the last artist, and this is Zoe Cohen. And she uses acrylic paint, but a lot of these have a little collage element in them as well. And They're very kind of contemporary, abstract, very cool. And a couple really large ones and then some smaller ones here. And hers are facing out. So even when the gallery is closed, you can actually come in, you can come by and get a pretty good look at her paintings. So I think I've actually showed you everything. I hope that that doesn't discourage people from coming to see them in person.
No, everyone needs to go see him in person. I stopped by last Sunday so I could see your gallery. It is really lovely to go and look and explore on your own. So, and First Friday Art Walk, you will be open, correct?
Yes, First Friday. This is the first Friday we've had since last year in March. And all the artists are going to be here. My husband, Michael Jones, is going to be pouring some of his homemade cider and Riesling. And, probably people are going to be wearing masks. I haven't made a statement about that, but we're just see how it goes, but we'll have those handy if people want to put them on. But we are going to be serving wine. So we're sort of in this weird time where I'm not really sure what the protocol is, but hopefully we'll do whatever necessary so people feel safe. But we're excited to be open. We're going to put our Art Walk flag out. And both galleries are going to be open. Actually, the gallery at Fifth Street is Karin Clarke at the Gordon. Is going to be open, and actually plein air artist Patty McNutt is going to be painting outside, doing a painting demo, and the doors are going to be open, and you can get a glass of wine at one of the neighboring venues.
So let's talk about your artistic practice, because your residency is so exciting to me, and I want everyone to hear all about it. So tell us, what's your artistic practice?
So yes, I am a budding painter. For most of my life, I've been dabbling in art, and I took art classes, all through my 20s, from painting to printmaking, drawing, sculpture. And, once I opened the gallery, I was, and realized the level of artists that I was showing, I think it completely intimidated me. And, I was already kind of intimidated by my parents' work. And so I didn't make art mostly, for many years. And then about in 2013 or 14, I took a printmaking workshop in Sitka and started learning monotypes. And I thought, I love making monotypes. And I put one of my very first ones, I entered it in the Mayor's Art Show in 2015, and I was shocked to get in. I was like, oh my God, I got in. And then I actually won an award, and I thought, well, it's such a little piece, but I was thrilled. It sold. I thought, oh my gosh. And so I was really encouraged by that. And then a few years later, at my mom's encouraging, and I think I was telling you this before, that my dad had, after he passed away, it turned out there was this little bank account, and there was like $1,000 for each of my brother and I was like, I've got to do something with art with this. And I thought maybe it's going to be printmaking. And I ultimately decided to go to Italy again with my mom, and I took James Kroner's painting class. We went to Lake Como and then to Venice, and then I traveled on after that and kept painting. And it really got me into oil painting, and I was really impressed with his techniques. It was just a little different approach. He was more of a realist painter. And since then, I've had a painting practice. And then I had a show. I had my first show in many, many years in 2016, and it went over very well. And I applied to an artist residency in France at Chateau Window, and I was accepted. I thought, oh my gosh. And I used those paintings from Italy to apply, and they accepted me. And so in the spring of 2019, I left my daughter with her dad and just took off. And for 3 weeks and spent some time in Paris, and then went to my residency and painted like crazy. And you're in this incredible chateau with like 12 other artists from all over the world, and we were given studios and beautiful bedrooms, and you have these wonderful dinners, and the time is just your own. And I really promised, I wanted to get as much out of it as possible, because it's like I'm so busy. I'm always, I have so much to do, but to get this precious time away, I wanted to make every day like it was like 2 or 3 days in one. So I was the first one that I was outside painting. Like the other artists were driving off the first day to like go on a road trip, and I was set up, early in the morning, and people were really surprised. But I knew from painting with my mom, it's like you got to just get on it. And yeah, and so that's me from 2019 painting the wonderful church on the grounds, and this is the chateau. Poor me, it was horrible.
It's beautiful. It's like, so lovely.
It's like going to Downton Abbey or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful.
I love this picture of you.
I was so, you could see how happy and settled I was painting. And in that 2 weeks residency, I started about 17 paintings that I came back with. And over the next year or so, I worked back into those and, finished them. But my plan was to go back last year. And I proposed that to the chateau. I said, could I please come one more time, because I wanted to paint more interior, because I realized right at the end of my time there that I did one painting of the interior, and I was like, I love the interior. That might be a new direction for me. And and I only got to do that one. And so they said, yes, you can come back. And I'd scheduled it. So it was supposed to be a year later. And then, within weeks that I was supposed to go, that's when things shut down. So it was supposed to be April of 2020. So that got canceled. It got moved to September. And of course that got canceled. And I'm actually going next month now. So I'm returning, assuming everything goes well, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to Paris. I'm spending 4 days there. I'm going to hopefully be able to go to museums and get all warmed up, and then, paint my heart out in Chateau Window.
It is very exciting. I'm really jealous and just want to tag along, be your administrative assistant, carry things for you. Something like that.
Yeah, my husband one time was on a trip, and he's like, I'm your art scout, and he found actually really good views. That would actually be helpful. No.
Well, let's look at some of your paintings. This first one is from your time there, I believe. You want to tell us about it?
This is one of my favorite pieces. I think it was called View from the Chateau Window. And really it's a 12 by 12 inch oil on like a linen canvas. And it's one of the later ones that I started there, but I worked on it a long time once I got home. And it was really like the breathtaking view that I saw out my bedroom window. And I actually painted this in the lower level of the chateau in the gallery. There was an area, it was a view out the window. Yeah, there I am. That's me painting it. Yes, in action. So I started it there, got a pretty good foundation, and then I took photographs so I could work back into it. And I really wanted to just have everything. It's like the church. It's like you're in Europe. The architecture, the drama, the waterfalls. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to get this all in this little painting. And I was actually really happy with how it turned out. And my friend Monica owns this painting, so I get to see it on occasion.
And this is the one that is the cover of your book?
Yes. I put together a little book, and this is something that I recommend artists doing, especially when they have kind of a body of work that goes together, and especially if you have the opportunity to have it in a show, and you can either have this available for people, but mainly as a record for yourself that because these paintings might sell, or something happens to them. And it's just, I feel really good knowing that like that whole experience is in this little book. And I liked that the book was square like so many of the paintings, and it was little like a lot of the paintings. And I feel like I'll always, like, even though I only have a few of these paintings left, I have this little book of the memories. And I was happy with the paintings, but it's like the more distance you get from them, it's also almost like the more you like them. You're like, oh yeah, I do just have a connection to them. So I think it's great to have a book, and then it's also an easy way, like for people who miss the show, I can be like, oh, it's all in here. And this is just like Snapfish, but there's lots of online places you can put a book together, and it's a nice tool to have as an artist.
Great advice. Let's look at a couple more of your paintings. This one is from this year.
Yeah, yes. Well, this is from last fall. This was right during the smoky fire season of last year, and I remember it so well. This is when I had realized that I wasn't going to be able to go to France in the fall. And I had actually scheduled myself to do this show in November, and my plan was to go to France and do these interiors. So actually, I think my husband suggested to me, he's like, why don't you like book a room at the Sylvia Beach Hotel or something? You need a little getaway to do your art. And anyway, this painting is called Jane Austen Room, and it's a Jane Austen room at the Sylvia Beach Hotel. And I have another painting I did that's in my studio from the Sylvia Beach Hotel. I actually have this fantasy to do like every painting of every room, but anyway, this was in my show, and I booked a room by myself for 3 nights in whenever that was, like September or something of last year. And it so happened that it was when it was incredibly smoky, and all those awful fires were on, and I felt really bad. I felt so guilty leaving my family, but at the same time, like I knew I needed some time to myself, and it was just a really hard year. And I tried to capture, what I think of as kind of the romantic feeling of kind of being alone, and that sense of possibility and the timelessness also of this room. And kind of just, I kept it very kind of tonalist, and the colors are very muted, but I wanted it to just feel very quiet, like this is a place, to really rest and to, be creative and to think about things. And I tried to convey my feeling about this room and this room as a sense of possibility, and for that quietness and that feeling of escape. But of course I look at it and I also think, well, that was the time of the fires, but hopefully the people that own it don't think about that. But they don't know that.
No, there is, and as we continue to look at your paintings, they're especially the interiors are so inviting that like I want to put myself in that painting and in that space. I think you really are right on with like capturing the feeling of what that is to like be in that space, and probably what you were going through as a person, but also I think anybody can like relate to that same experience. So I like this one, and you said this came from a picture that your husband took.
Yes, when we were first dating and we took a trip, I was already scheduled to go to Florence. I actually went to Venice to paint with my mom that year. It was a year after the Kroner workshop, and I wanted to continue that tradition, but on our own. And then I booked a place in Florence, Italy, for a week by myself. But then, we got together, and I said, well, do you want to meet me there? And he said, sure. And this is from our first few hours there. We were in this little flat in Florence, and And I had stayed there before, I think the year before I had stayed there. And he took this photograph, and which I loved the photograph. And when I realized I wasn't going to be able to return to the chateau last year, I was really looking for photographs or interiors that had the mood that I was going for, which was maybe a little bit dreamy and inviting, and you know, like, and of course last year we were all cooped up and not able to go anywhere, and I think I could kind of travel in my mind through these paintings, and so this was a really good memory. And I love this kind of interior that's a little bit dark, but the light's coming in and trying to capture, you know, where the light is hitting. And also, you know, it is a self-portrait. In some ways, I think every painting is kind of a self-portrait, but, you know, I'm using myself. But it was just a great memory, and I found it was an interesting subject because, you know, I had the flowers in there and the items on that. You know, I was probably looking at like maps, or yeah, I think it was looking at a map, or, you know, we're planning out our first day, like what are we going to do when we're there, and there's a painting on the wall and some reflections, and it was enjoyable to paint. And it's only 8 by 10. These last couple ones are just tiny paintings, but, you know, trying to get a lot of information in there without making them look too busy.
So intimate. Here's another one. This was, I think, from your time in France.
Yes, this is from the living room, and I did a little bit smaller painting when I was there. That was the one interior I did, and I was dying to go back and do more. And then I realized, well, I can just paint a larger version of this scene that I did before, and this is it. And this was, you know, 14 by 14 inches, so it's not large, but it's within the context of that series. It was larger. And I had that other painting I had done to work from, and I had photographs to work from, and I was happy with how I captured the light, especially on the floor there. And you know, the furniture was really opulent. They had these tapestries on the wall. It was an old hunting lodge, so these kind of hunting you know, scenes in the background. And it was interesting for me to have that challenge of trying to paint, you know, a painting or within a painting, you know, and how to kind of handle that kind of loosely, but have it be there. But, you know, I didn't want to go so detailed that it took over. And I really enjoyed painting this. I think this was a lot of people's favorite piece when the show was up. It's, yeah, I can't believe I get to go back there. I get to sit on that couch and drink coffee in the morning.
When I saw it, I'm like, I want to go and sit on that couch. Like, I want to be in that space. So this last one, I think I've said that like everyone is my favorite, but I think this one's my favorite.
Oh, yeah, this is actually, everyone thought this is, I called it mon bain, or my bath. And I think everyone thought it was the bathroom at the chateau, which I do want to do a painting of, but this is actually my bathroom at home in Pleasant Hill. And again, this is a really, like, in the house, this is kind of like my room. And I've added some things like the mirror and the pitcher and bowl and the curtains, and I tried to make the bathroom like sort of a retreat. And I'm a big bath taker. And originally I actually had painted myself in the bath. And it was just too much. Like, I really tried to make it work, and it was it's only 8 by 10 inches. The painting was too full. And I found that it had more the mood I wanted without me. So I painted, even though I worked forever on the figure, I just painted it out. And I was really happy with this painting. And, you know, I tried to keep it just very tonal and very muted. And so this sense that, you know, you're in this quiet space, but this, you know, there's a little bit of sun coming in. And I've always loved paintings of bathrooms for some reasons, or figure in bath. And I don't know, there's something so private about it. Like you mentioned, the intimacy. I'm really looking for that intimacy lately in my work. And if I can have someone have some kind of feeling like I want to be there, or gosh, that's, that gives me a feeling of calm or inviting. Like I love that, because that's how I feel about this space. And I'm interested in that.
I think it is my favorite because I'm a big fan of baths too, and I can like picture, I could like put myself into that bathtub. I think I said that about all of your paintings, is that they're just they so connect with, me on a personal level of like the space that I would like to inhabit as well. And one of the things we've kind of touched on throughout this is talking about, being an artist, and being a parent, and finding that work-life balance, and how, your trips away affected your daughter Ava, and what what is, just tell us about that. What is that work-life balance like for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's that is a huge issue in most everyone that I know. And, especially, people who have kids, and you're just, trying to meet their needs, and you're working, and it's, for me, a lot of times my painting life is really the last on the list. But I always, have heard and, loved when I heard things like, the more we take care of ourselves or do what we are sort of meant to do, or that our passion, really the more we have to give. And also the idea of modeling, not just taking care of our kids, but also modeling what kind of a way of living, and putting a priority on, things that matter to you personally and your kids. And, it's going to be hard for them to see you as an individual, but, but someday, just like my parents really modeled, that they were always doing their art. That is who they are. And I have, often put, my, being a parent or the gallery really first. But when I decided to do that first trip, and I did the painting workshop with, I should say first trip, I guess, as a parent, I did that painting workshop with James Croner and my mom, and was gone for 3 weeks, like in this spring. And my daughter must have been like 6th grade, and we're very close. And it was really hard for her, and I felt guilty, and I felt super guilty. I'm leaving on September 11th next month. She starts at a new high school on the 10th. And she will, every time I bring it up, it's, she can't believe that I'm doing this. But, I think deep in her heart, like, she is proud of me. And it'll be rough, but she'll survive. And I tell her, it's like, I want to be here. I want to be here to, help you with school and talk about it and make sure, get you the food you need and do all these things. But, this is my precious time that I've carved out and waited patiently for, that is all about my, it's not about the gallery. It's not about me as a mom or a wife. It's about, like, anything is possible. And I'm just there to soak up every moment of it and be present with myself and see what's possible. And I know that I admire this in other people, and it's been hard for me to like kind of fight for this time, and I'm getting better at that. I'm getting better at protecting things for myself and learning to, I'm in my 50s now, and to speak up for something that I might need, and to make a case, like, am I worthy of this? Am I a good enough artist to deserve this? Like, that was when I had the first residency. I thought, oh my God, are people going to think, who's she? She's not her parents, and, but when I was there, like, we all respected each other. And I realized, I wasn't there because I had a gallery. I was there because I was an artist, and I wasn't there because I was a mom. I mean, we had these things, but it's like, but that's something I work on every single day. and really trusting my daughter that she's, she's getting independent. She'll be fine, and she'll see, like I remember when she went to the mayor's art show in 2015, and we went to the award ceremony, and they called my name, and she was just beaming. She couldn't believe, there's something about being proud of your parents, and that's not why I was doing any of this, but it's like, like I want to be that kind of mom too. Like I want to be, I don't want to be someone that like is putting off everything and like, oh, that's for other people. Like why not? And then the other thing is that I told her, and now publicly I'm announcing it, that when she graduates high school, I'm taking her to Europe, and I'm going to take her to these places and show her, and I'm going to take her to Venice and Florence and Paris or something, and whatever. If I can't afford it, I'll do something crazy and I'll make it happen. But I don't know that I'll paint on the trip, but I'll probably drag her to museums. But anyway. So I think balance is a huge issue, but you don't lose by taking that time for yourself. People don't really lose. It in some way, it's going to serve her in her life, I hope.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure that she is proud of you and will be proud of you in the future. And I am proud of you as a mom to a mom, taking the time for your artistic self and feeding, what you need in your life. I think that's awesome. And we're going to go over time just a little, because I can't not get to your mayor's art show picture, which I think the message of is so important. And it's so much of what like we have gone through the past year. So could you please tell us about this one?
Yeah, this is really different from the other work that I'm doing. But during, when everything was shut down and my daughter was at home, I started painting on some of my old prints. This is one of them that I kind of liked how it turned out. It's called Ava Waiting, and it's of my daughter. She was younger in the picture that I worked from, and we've all gone through a lot this last year, but I just think about the kids, especially the teenagers or it's unless they're young kids, maybe they're not aware, but how hard it was, just for them being isolated and things on hold. And so this is just a little piece that as of my daughter looking out the window with these kind of strange flowers. And I wanted it to be kind of sweet, but this undercurrent of some sadness and kind of waiting for your life to start again. And I saw it in her and her friends, and just people felt really, really alone. And so this is kind of a little off track from the other work that I was doing, but I thought it seemed like a good piece to submit to the mayor's art show, and I was really tickled when it got accepted. I think it's hanging in the airport. And it's just a little piece, but I thought, it's very current because it's about the isolation of this last year.
Yes, I love it. And I think that's exactly what it conveys. So wrapping up, tell us about what shows are coming up in the fall quickly.
Yes. Okay. So this award winner show goes through August 21st. And then we're putting up a show of my mom's. Her name is Margaret Coe, if you haven't already picked that up or know it. And her show is called Wild Spaces. And it's paintings that she's been working on of the last 2 years. And it's these incredibly dramatic paint. Do you have that one?
I do. I have this one.
One of her paintings. I think it's called something like Spiritual Awakening. I might be getting that wrong, but it's a lot of the paintings are based on the forest, the wild forest of her backyard, and the light shining through, and they just are primal. And there's something raw and primal, and like the earth is alive, and the sky and the heavens are alive, and it's the kind of work that's hard to put into words, but it's, she's 80 years old. She's been painting for 50, 60 years, and they're large and they're on another level. And she also did some of the Oregon coast with that same feeling. And then, so that's our show for September. In October, we're doing a show of about 25 prints by the late Rick Bartow, one of Oregon's most famous artists. He was a Newport native, Native American artist, internationally known, and the Jordan Schnitzer Museum did a wonderful exhibit called Things You Know That Cannot Be Explained. Oh, I botched that. Things You Know But Cannot Explain. And it traveled to 11 museums around the country, and treasured artist and person. And I'm just really honored to be showing these works, and it's going to be a really interesting show. So that's October. So I'm excited about our fall lineup. And yeah, and I'm going to be gone for part of it, but I have a wonderful staff that's filling in, and I'll be here for half of each of those shows, or more than half.
Well, I can't wait to talk to you when you get back from France again. And I'll have to stop by the gallery and see what you're up to. It has been great to talk to you today, and best of luck in France. So to the viewers today, thank you for listening in as I talk to Karin Clarke of Karin Clarke Gallery, and go out, see art, visit a gallery, and be sure to donate to nonprofits, if not to Lane Arts Council, but to one that is dear to your heart. It's been great seeing you.
Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.